Hello everyone. I hope you are all back on the seat. Let's begin the session with the first session for the day. Uh, the first session is from Chennai chapter from Jai Chakravarti. Jai Chakravarti is a leading quality analyst at ThoughtWorks. He has 15 plus years of industry experience. Today he is going to talk about my journey making a client team apply XP values to transform themselves. This Chennai chapter is going to be facilitated by Rohit on behalf of Agile Network India. So I request Rohit and Jay to come on the screen.
And greetings to everyone, and thanks for joining with us. So today we have with us Mr. Jaya Chakravarti, who is going to help us understand about making client team apply extreme programming values to transform themselves with his journey. Mr. Jaya is a lead quality analyst and very passionate about quality. He's an agile consultant with 13 years of experience with ThoughtWorks and 15 years overall performing various roles including quality analyst, program quality analyst, QA advisory, extreme programming champion, and also he's a trainer and mentor. I would like to invite and welcome Mr. Jaya Chakravarti. Looking forward for insightful session. Platform is yours, Jaya.
Uh, First of all, I would like to thank Agile Network India for giving me this chance, and also people who are making it for being available on a weekend. So thanks for both. Uh, so Today I'll be talking about my journey, in making a client apply XP values to transform themselves. It's a big title, and I put XP value specifically rather than XP itself. I'll try to justify about it in the upcoming slides. So myself, currently, I'm working in ThoughtWorks. I'm a digital transformation consultant with ThoughtWorks, and my focus area is modern enterprise, modern software engineering consultant. So as even Rohit was telling, so I have worn various hats over the period of time, which is like predominantly, which is around QA, being a QA SME, a lead QA, handling multiple streams, being coach, an IM, a BA, and a lot of my time, like helping others by being a mentor. And I'm definitely a agile enthusiast. So even from the beginning of my career, I have been in this environment for quite some time. And from a personal standpoint, I love music, as most of us do. And also, the word dog mom seems to be very famous. So I just thought, like, let me say dog dad. And I like biking, both motor and without motor. I do long distance bike ride with my friends. So that's about me on a very high level. So now this story is about, this particular team. So in ThoughtWorks, like we have offices in various locations, and one of the location is Italy. And this particular project is in Italy. And this is like the very first time I had the opportunity to be a part of an enablement or a transformation engagement where like there are like three of us or four of us at a certain point of time who are trying to enable a client's team to develop XC practices and the ways of working and things like that. So I'll just like give a brief about that's the reason why I put the photos here. I just give a brief about why this photo I put. So this is myself and Jay Chakravarti, and this is Matthew, this is Sandeep, and this is Rafael, right? So these are four folks who are from ThoughtWorks. The rest all team which you see here is from the client side. Now just like few personas here, so this is the very youngest member in the team, and this person has just like 1 year or 2 years of experience a lot, and this is the person who works on like only the part of the story or say part of the feature where that particular person has to work, and the scope of that work is like nothing beyond that. So the person only works on that particular thing. So what I'm trying to tell is that there is no interaction as such. That person doesn't know how to talk to, or I would say, has some kind of inhibition, talking to elders or people who are experienced. And as you're saying, these are like two most experienced work, like above 40, 45 plus, and this is the entire organization's architect, our CTO, and this person was also the part of the team. Now when you think about XP and all those things, like people need to work together. So like how we achieve this is what I'm like trying to convey it over here. So this is like the very first day where we started. So this particular story is about how this team started in such a way and how it reached here. So this is the same person which I showed you in the initial slide, where the person I said was very timid or something. Now this person is giving the presentation in showcase presentation to the CEO of the company. And when the CEO actually asked, like, what did you gain from this engagement, she gave like a 15-minute speech of like how ThoughtWorks helped them, or how the XP values were applied, how agile ways of working helped them, and all those things, for a total of 10 to 15 minutes. And the CEO was like completely sold, and like he was like very happy to hear that too from the most youngest person in the team and almost in the entire organization, right? So a few things. So this is my journey and my interpretation. So your interpretation might be something else if you have gone to like a very similar journey. And I am still trying to stick to my values. There are like places or venues here and there where like I might not choose the values because I'm a normal human. So, but still I'm like trying to do that. And there will be like some photos like what you saw earlier, and also some cliche images here and there. And I won't be getting locked into the practices or technicality as such. Okay, and there will be some gyan, but it will be mostly my journey. And at the end, the feedback will be like really helpful. So the engagement was about gaining trust of the clients through a small team's transformation by developing a piece of functionality in exactly 3 months. Right? This is like the statement which we are met with. But what does it exactly means? It exactly means that we need to prove that Agile works to build a software and also upskill at a scale in a very short period of time, and that too where the people or the tools and technologies are used as in a very legacy environment. So that is the problem which was in front of us. Now coming to the challenges, right? We all have started the project, and we have to start the day one. It was like chaos, right? It's like, oh my god, it's happening, everybody stay calm, because there are like serious challenges ahead. So from that point of view, the challenges were, it was the first TW project for even half of the team. So I showed like 4 TW members, like 2 people were new to the organization, and it was the first transformation project for the entire ThoughtWorks team itself. So all 4 of us, we have not been as a part of the team where we're doing like some kind of enablement. It has always been a delivery engagement. This is the first time we're sitting with the clients and teaching them and stuff like that. And everything new for half the team. This is for including the client side. So whatever they are working on, like be it practices, be it tools or anything, everything was like new, and everyone was new to each other. That's like very obvious, right? So I am going to the Italy for the very first time. The 2 people had joined newly. The entire client side team, they have been working in different projects, so the entire team was new. The other important thing which was in front of us was that's like no BA, and the transformation has to be done for a BA role also, and there's definitely like some lot of analysis and other things which are happening. So this is like a major challenge for us. And as I said, limited time to prove and vague direction. So it was like it took a lot of time for us to like actually think about like what is in front of us and what we need to work on. And we had an inception and we tried to figure it out. So the other most important thing is, when I say inception is the initial like the 1 or 2 months worth of time where we spend with the clients to understand what is exactly the problem statement. Do they even have a problem statement? How to approach it? What can be reused? What should be newly developed? So all those things, the MSL, the master story list, all those things are something which are done as a part of inception, and nobody has a part of the inception. So this is the thing, right? Now a short story here. So our client principal, they visit us from time to time to understand like what are the problems which we are dealing with. And they'll ask like, do you have any problems? Should I help you in some way? So like, we the 4 thought workers, we are like reasonably young, we are in new environment, like we thought that okay, it's asked in all good hope, like let me talk about our problems. He asked like this place is like completely new, we are all away from our hometowns, or for me like from the home location, which is Milan. We are from different location. The housing and accommodation is like really difficult here. Okay, so we said that, and the CP was like, see, you folks are on the ground, you are consultants, you figure it out. We are like, okay, okay, that's fine. And then we said that okay, there are like some eight odd client folks, and we are only four, and in 1 month there'll be only three people. Like how can we do like transformation for such a huge team? We are only three or four of us. The response again was same: you are consultants, you need to figure it out. They're like okay. Then the CP again asked like, do you have any other problem? And they're like, no. So with the bigger problem here was like there's like no BA, but like, but that particular thing helped us a lot, right? So given any environment or whatsoever, there'll be some kind of challenges, but definitely there'll be also be a lot of like strengths which we are dealing with. And as a consultants, we need to be in a position where we use the strengths for us, and like figure out how to overcome the challenges. So, from the strengths point of view, we were all new to each other. Can you folks ping in chat? I'll just wait for a second or two and then see like why this is a strength, that we were all new to each other. I'm just opening the chat here to see like one or two responses at least. Thanks, Arthi Goel. So that's almost right. So like nobody knows each other, right? So there is no bias or anything, so we don't have preconceived notion about each other. So that's the most important thing when we are new to each other. The other thing is that we became friends almost immediately. We knew our strengths. That's quite important. It was quite a diverse team in terms of age, in terms of like sex, in terms of like where the particular person comes from, what technically do they know, and all those things. It was a very diverse team. And the most important thing was, from the client side, everybody who was chosen were a person who wanted this particular engagement to work. So they were all very interested to like being part of such a team, and they wanted this to work, and everybody was looking forward to learn. And the cozy small town made us a great team. It was a very small town, the place was like really beautiful. I'll like show like few photos from now. So this is where the place was, right? And the mountains which you see are the Alps. So this is a small beautiful place. This place enabled us to like have like a lot of like a very going out, having a beautiful conversation and all those things, which I'll see about it. So now, so about the session, right? So the most important thing about like practices and rituals is, right, whenever a team is starting off with say XP or Agile, the thing which comes to mind is like lot of practices, lot of rituals and all those things. But with the humongous amount of rituals, humongous amount of like the practices which we follow, people tend to forget like what is the background of it. And that is the part which I'm trying to address here, when I'm telling that like the basics, the values of XP are like more important than the practices itself. If you are not able to encourage or understand why a certain practices follow, it doesn't make sense. So from that point of view, success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. So if you keep applying the fundamentals or the values, you will eventually win. And that's like no other magic about it. Huh. So everybody knows this, right? Like on a very high level, these are the values: courage, communication, simplicity, respect, and feedback. So again, as I said, few cliche images. So fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. It's understandable. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step, right? So I do that a lot after working in this particular XP environment, where I take up the first step and then see, let's see how it goes. That's the like the motto that I have usually. So coming to courage, so this is the inception meeting which happened, right? So this is the first 1 or 2 weeks where we spent with the client side, and where everybody had to give input. And if you see, these are the most experienced folks I were talking about, and they know the systems, they know how it works, and they were giving. But apart from that, right, as I said, there are like a lot of new team members. They don't know, like how to talk to people who are experienced, like how to talk to a person who is from a different function and things like that. So when you think about the courage and those kind of aspects, so the important thing is that, right, you need to take the leap of faith. Leap of faith is, like working. So in XP we do pair programming. Pairing itself is like a, big, like moving to out of comfortable zone or something. Like for example, when as a young person, when you're new to such an environment, say thinking about pairing with the person who is at the architect of your entire organization, like how does it sound to you as a person when you're like very new, right? It sounds scary at the very first time. Like these are the very small things where, you have to take a leap of faith and just go ahead and do it. The other thing is like presenting. Like the XP values work in way where communications a must, and everybody has to, like, talk in some kind of forum, like be it retro or be it stand up or something, or like any other, like for example IPM, a BA has to present things. So these kind of things has to be there. And expressing thoughts, sharing ideas in a team with big names. So you don't have to think about, is my idea smaller than others? Like I'm a very young person, will they consider my idea? So these kind of inhibition shouldn't be there. The next most important thing is like using process and tools frameworks which are completely new. This is like quite scary for a few people, right? Like in Thoughters, when people are recruited, we try to understand like how good their learnability is. So we also like, like take interview for the actual tools and other things, but on top of it, we also understand, like what is the learnability. So in that point of view, many people I have seen, when there's a new tool, for example, Selenium is the very common, WebDrive is a very common thing. But when you're suddenly talking about like, should we use Cypress or even like, like a JavaScript based Selenium framework and other things, it sounds scary. But when you're thinking about, working something new, you have to move out of the comfort zone and all those things. So it's okay to work on a completely new thing. There will be failures, but I think it's fine, we can work with it. Like we have feedback and other things which will help us to, like improve from that point of view. And signing up for things which seem like difficult than what they are. For example, you might be like some person who like signing up for, like say for example, every story should have like some kind of ACs and all those things. So this like a simple things which, like XP enables people to, like sign up for like some kind of activities. It might be like very small thing, but it can be like something very huge. The other important thing for, like ThoughtWorks is like we come with like some amount of, like knowledge on, like enablement, XP and all those things. But we are also in a position to, like learn their environment, learn what their tools are already there and things like that. And filling in the role of BA and helping out client BA was most important courageous task which we did. Like I took up a lot of time, like in explaining what does the BA do, how to write stories, what does a story mean and things like that. So leap of faith is not just for the team, it's even for the leaders, right? So the leaders, they have to like stay in the background and be available when in need, and also they should be in the position where they are empowering the team. Empowering the team also means that you shouldn't be expecting all the decisions as a leader to be taken by yourself. You have to, like put trust in the team and, think that, they will take the best decision for themselves. And when there's any need, like be available and provide feedback if necessary. Don't be too bad about it if something goes wrong. Provide vision of the project and all those things, and trusting the team. So like courage is also something which, leaders also have to take when there's an adoption which is happening. Communication. So So now the team has started, the team has formed. There is like courage. Everybody has like gone outside of their comfort zone. They have like formed the team and all those things. Now communication is like the most important aspect, right? We have seen like I have said the context that there are like many people in the folks. I mean many people in the team who are like various level of knowledge, various level of experience, all those things. Now XP requires you to like work on like a dining table setup kind of environment where people, like sit opposite and they have to like interact. But after the very first, after the inception of the thing, when we started off, like having stand-ups or, meeting like retros, the participation was like quite less. We try to identify, like what's wrong and why it's not happening. And it's like, like not every environment works in a way where, like a typical agile environment happens. So now the most important thing to fix was like, how do you, like increase the communication? to increase the communication, the most important as well, like improve the bonding of the team, right? So from that point of view, what we thought was that the typical coffee breaks which we take, typical smoke breaks which we take, like around, like say, first half of the day or the second half of the day and things like that, make it as a team thing. Like whenever we go out for a coffee, call the rest of the folks. Like we call, right, water cooler conversation and things like that. Like when you go out for a coffee, there are like very common conversation which come out, like which will be like completely like non-technical, informal and other things. And like have every Thursday we ensure that we have like some kind of activity which is planned. Like it can be like a dinner, it can be like like a sports outing, it can be like some kind of bar kind of things or anything. And this is an photo from a picnic lunch which we had, like which we do like every 2 weeks once, where like do some takeaway, we go to this particular spot, sit there and eat. And talking about food, so the thing with Italians is that you can talk a lot about food. So we'll talk about biryani, we'll talk about pizza and all those things are there, which you can't do with probably many other cultures, I believe. But if you have Italian friend, like start talking about pasta, pizza, biryani or whatever, and sharing food. So the one thing which I wanted to show here was, so this is the other end of the view, right? Like think about a picnic over here, like you are in the mid of the work, you come here just for a lunch, grab some food, and the conversation which happened here was like amazing. So the bonding has like pretty much improved, right? So from that point of view, right, this improved the participation a lot, especially in like stand-ups, IPM, retro. There's like a lot of conversation which are happening. There was like cross pollination. So for every pairing which we do, we used to have pairing matrix. So we ensure that every person pairs with each and every person. So from that point of view, cross pollination happens. Like for example, if one person is like really good at like UI, when this person pairs with a person who doesn't know UI, the UI will be learned by the other person. The same way around, like even from a web services or even from testing and all those things, there's always cross pollination which happened. And inviting team members and other functions in related meetings. For example, when you have to, so this is like a typical organization, right? For example, that's like a design team which like sits completely differently outside of the team. That's a team which is responsible for spinning up of environments and things like that, and they sit in a separate team. So typically what happens is that the architect will go in and speak, that person will figure out everything, and that person will come and give direction as to what the team needs to do. Now we completely broke that. We said that like we need a design conversation, let's call in the design person, let's call in that lead from the team, and like also call few people from our team also. So that way there's like some amount of interaction which happens with the entire team and not just a single point of view. So what did that do was it decentralized the knowledge. So one person had knowledge of how to interact with the team, get things work done and things like that. Now that particular thought process was decentralized. And the other important thing was like go round robin. So whenever you are in a meeting, and there's like few people who are like always talking and few people most importantly who are like usually silent, like wait for some time, be okay with the awkward silence, and wait for round robin fashion for everybody to give their thoughts and ideas on the same thing. So again, a cliche thing, right? You have a process, tell me about how we can add more process and all those things. So the important thing about this is that, right, so whenever we are starting with such an engagement, whenever you're talking about rituals and other things, every time when there's like a new ritual which is coming up, people will be usually happy about it. They like to follow process. Many people like to like follow some kind of rituals. It makes them happy for some reason. So but the thing is that the XP value says that it's very important to be simple about it. So I would like to like state a very simple example here. So in the we used GitLab, if I'm not wrong, for like deployment for CI/CD and all those things. But the thing is that creating tags on the same branch was a little bit different, a little bit difficult. Like we had a place where like for one version of environment to be deployed, we needed like a different code over there, and that was not like very directly achievable. But what the roundabout way was, if you are able to create a new tag, that particular tag will ensure that deployment in a certain environment happens clearly. Now the tag was not the most important thing, right? The important thing here was to deploy in a new environment. That's the most important thing. Now what happened was that we created this. Now the discussion came out what to name the tag. And then there's like, like should we give the date, should we give the time, the month, and all those things? Should we all do that and everything? So this discussion happened for 1 hour. They decided on something. And again, like 1 or 2 weeks from there, there's again a discussion that this tags are not working properly. I mean, like the names of the tag doesn't make sense and other things further. And again, there was this discussion. Now we brought back to the discussion and we said that, like, why did we invent tag? The tags itself is not for any reason at all. The most important thing is about deploying in a new environment. Should we even talk about the tags? And like we completely eliminated that. So like we need to stick to the simplicity. So has anyone heard about these things? A quick now. So I'll just take the answer. So whenever you're talking about practices, right? Typically, this is from dojo, and we follow the shu ra ha ri, and shu is like fundamental repetition. You repeat whatever your coach is telling. The next thing is that like some kind of detachment. So you self recognize and like understand what is behind it. And the end, you are in a position where you know everything. You figure out your own creative ways to like understand things. So why I'm telling is that, for example, when we are following test driven development, the people, they didn't understand why we need to write so many tests and why actually to start off with tests and other things, right? Every time when we are writing stories, there's like some kind of like conversation around like why a certain practices need to follow. And every time we told them like like just be patient, like start writing, let's see how it goes, okay? But around like 2 weeks or 3 weeks into the software, what happened was that there's like some kind of refactoring which happened. And the same developer who was cribbing about it, after the refactoring, he came back and said us, like TDD helped me to, like do the refactoring in a very reasonable way. Like previously he had done that's like lot of failures and other things whenever there was a refactoring. But with TDD in place, every time, like when he was writing a new code, it was testing itself and then ensuring that everything else was doing fine. Like some kind of regression was happening in the place. So like finally he was able to understand like what things are happening. So to sum it up, right? So whenever you're talking about like process or ways of working and other things, think about the most leanest way, like what works for your situation right now. Don't think about what may appear like 1 or 2 years down the line. Don't like overdo or overkill those kind of things, and always do one at a time. So one example which I did here was that when during the first 2 or 3 weeks, what we did was that we lived with like only 2 or 3 environments. So we had, of course, the local environment, we had the CI environment for the test to run, and we had a QA environment for for doing the testing and all those things. So we only lived with 3 environments. But about 1 month time from there, we needed an environment where like the clients could use, the PO could use, the other stakeholders could use, where they could like play around the system. And that is when we actually came about and told that like, can we think about an idea of a new environment? The existing environment, which is like the local, the CI, and the QA, don't like solve the purpose of a stable environment which is required by the stakeholders. We need a new environment, and that's when we came. So we didn't like reinvent everything. So I mean, we didn't like like start thinking about everything in the beginning itself, and only when it's necessary, and no reinventing of it. So this and legacy environment, there's like lot of systems which are already like being used. So the entire code, like I don't want to tell about what kind of software and other things, but entire thing was available already. So we just had to like somehow containerize it and use it. So we didn't reinvent the software itself, but we invented a way where we could containerize it and use it, right? That's what we did. The other most important is that I conducted a session of, I just called it the session of why. So what we did here was that we spoke about all the practices. We listed down what all we do in a team, from from beginning of an iteration to an end of an iteration. It can be like DevOps, it can be IPM and all those things. I asked them like, don't tell what are we doing, tell why are we doing something. And that is when a lot of understanding and a lot of practice happen. And we also, what we did was that we removed few things which are like completely unnecessary and didn't make any sense, and we are just doing it for the sake of it, and add more only if necessary. Like as I said, for the environments or like the tax and other things, add more only if necessary to the process or when the need arises. So from moving on to from simplicity to the other thing, which is like respect, again, like two cliche images. So you can't force someone to respect you, but you can refuse to be disrespected. I always try to follow it. So I will be always in a position where I wouldn't allow anybody to disrespect me, like whatever be it. And respect is a two-way street. If you want it, you should probably give it, right? So from that point of view, like we are talking about environment where like the leaders have to sit back, and the clients and the teams have to empower themselves. So now, like, only when the leaders, when they trust others, when they respect your team, that kind of environment will be set up. So trust people to do the right thing is like a primary form of respect that you can give to others. The other thing is that empathy on people. Think about where and each and every person comes from. For example, there might be like some kind of request which a PO asks. For example, it can be like, can you give me like some numbers of how many tests, like, or like some numbers on how many ACs are there or something. We may say no on the face, but probably like some kind of reasoning behind the ask. Actually, maybe their leaders are asking them, he has to submit some kind of like values, quantitative things and all those things. So have empathy on where that person is coming from, like try to like think from that point of view. And building on differences, as I said in the earlier slides, we try to use the like strengths, and not exactly like focus on differences or how different each others are. And shared leadership, this is the most important thing, right? Like, don't think about like like one person is a leader. Even the tech lead, even though it says lead, it's purely from a function standpoint of what that person has to do. It's not that this person is responsible for others. It's not like that. It's like shared leadership. Every person is a leader. And the other most important thing is like winning together rather than individually. So if you're in a agile team, if you're thinking about how I would win, and that is probably the downside of an agile project, and nobody should probably do it. Like, everybody should think about what is the right thing for the team to do. Of course, in that particular environment, you probably have to think about how I can shine, like how my reviews are, like my hikes will work and all those things, but it shouldn't be put in such a way that others are affected by it. So we're moving back to respect, coming to the most important thing. So one wise or the wisest being said, change you seek, give feedback you must, and learn from feedback one must. So feedback. So as a thumb rule, focus on observations. Don't focus on what you felt, right? So there's something is happening and you felt like really bad. So your feedback shouldn't be like, I felt like really bad. You should probably think about like what happened on the ground. The other thing is that focus on behavior and not individual. So for example, if there's a person called Rajesh, if I don't like Rajesh for some reason, don't think in a way that because Rajesh did it, it is wrong. So no, like that is the important thing here. Like, let's try to focus on the behavior of the person rather than the individual itself, and focus on what can be changed. That can be like, so this is that initial thing which I was talking, right? There's no BA that can be changed for any reason. So that is how the staffing was. We only had 3 months, and within 3 month time, it's very difficult to bring in a BA. So focus on what can be changed. So that's why like we moved the conversation. We never asked for a BA again. And provide help. So the most important part about like and feedback is you just don't go ahead and tell like what's wrong and what didn't work and anything. Like, help that person to achieve what you're saying. So from that point of view, also tell. So for example, if a person is coming late for stand up, and that's an important point, you're telling, like, probably tell about like what is happening wrong. For example, that person might not get few updates quickly. That person has to ask the same question again, and which might waste team's time. How can you come early? Can you plan your day? Do you need some kind of help? Can you attend the call like over phone and then come to office? Like, things like this can be discussed. So one of the thing about feedback is that, right, so when you say about agile, like how different it is, So you can probably sum it up that when you're talking about agile, you're talking about feedback in all this across these lenses, which is like team, system, and customers, right? Team is that your team members, like how will you improve your feedback, or how will you improvise as a team, which can be done by self respect. And as a person, I can think about, like for example, after today's session, I'll go back and think what I have done very well, what I have done wrong, what could I have improved. That is like self retrospect. The other thing is like individual feedback, like talk to your team members about if something can be improved. For example, the stand up example which I gave. And team retrospectives are also always there, like at least like once a month need to have like team retrospectives. Think about, do we need a certain process, or like are we happy with what's going on, how can we make things happy, and things like that. And have like some kind of cops or champions for each and everything. For example, one person can be a cop for people coming on time, or one person can be a cop for are people seeing the build monitors, are people fixing if there's a red build, and things like that. These are some kind of ideas where like team feedback can be improved. The next thing is for the system is like, like you are building a software, how will you understand, like the software is, like working in the right way. And to understand if the software is working in the right way, the feedback has to be like really short, right? So from that point of view, we have to think about ways that the shortest loop of feedback is possible. And that is when you think about testing layers, the unit testing is the most shortest form of, like the testing, or the UI testing is the most longest form of uh, like of getting a feedback. Now how do you run these various like layers of testing, and when do you run those to ensure that whenever you're deploying something, you get an error the most shortest time possible? And that is achieved by designing the test layers in that way. Yeah, maybe I can give a separate talk on that if that is something which is helpful. The other thing is like build monitors. Have monitors like where it is like really visible to understand if something has gone red. So people generally what they do is that they check in something and they forget completely like what is checked in. They move on with their next piece of work. But one day, or say that evening, some other person sees that something is red, and by the time that person takes the context from the current working standpoint and goes to the red and then comes back, fix it, checks in, and all those things, the feedback loops increases a lot. So to finish, so to fix that, right, like a visual build monitor where you could see like there are like system trace and all those software which are available, which quickly gives feedback of something is red or not. So these kind of things can be applied. And dev boxes, mini story showcases. For example, dev box is something which we follow like after each and every story is completed, before it moves to the testing lane. The developer calls for the BA and then QA, and then talks about like what showcase the story on a very high level. On a very high level, if you think that everything is working fine, then we'll move the story to the next layer. So that is the dev box. And mini story showcases. For example, if a developer is working on a very complex story and it has like a very fancy UI and has spent a lot of time on working the UI, before the story is complete, on a very high level, if that person wants to take a quick feedback of the story and to see how the UI looks, is it okay, and all those things, that he can show that story to even to the clients sometime, but definitely to the BAs and QAs and all those things. And definitely CD is there, like continuous delivery is there, which will eventually give like quicker feedback instead of me waiting say for the month and or like 2 or 3 months from now. If we are doing continuous delivery, you will know like what is the software in just like 2 or 3 days. And of course, customers point of view is there, the sign off meetings are there after every story is complete. You show that story to your PO, and then understand if that is what that person envisioned. And showcase meetings are there where like multiple stakeholders attend, and there is like CD. Of course, it's CD is both for like clients and the team. So to sum it up, all right, so whenever we are building a team, we shouldn't, probably in my point of view, we shouldn't think about like what are all the various rituals or practices I'm going to follow. Let's not try to do that. Let's think about whatever process and rituals we follow, like are we having these particular values on the root of it. If consider you're doing some kind of process, if it doesn't address any of this, it's probably useless. It doesn't address any of it, right? Like we have to remove it. Or we can have some kind of conversation to the clients or whoever it is has put such kind of rule to ensure that this doesn't make sense from any point of view in other software delivery. like we can remove it. So that is the idea of this thing. And finally, right, we gain their trust. So this is like the 3 months engagement. This is like the last day of it. And like we had the final showcase, and the CEO, the CTO, everybody was sitting in this table in the behind. And those folks like told us like thanks, and the collaborative way of working and all those things. And after like 1 month or something, we also got the next part of the engagement after that. So this was like a really great hit among the clients. So thank you. So that's my journey. Yeah.
Really very realistic and thought-provoking journey, Jay. I remember one proverb which says that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So, so puts forward the notion that however difficult a task is, you can only complete it if you first start it.
Ah,
So, and the values which you share, like communication, simplicity, feedback, courage, respect, so they are real foundation which grows you meaningfully and intellectually. So really, thanks for sharing your journey, driving through values and action. As we know, values just can't be words on page or presentation. So to be effective, they must shape actions and reflection. Thank you so much.
thank you.
We do have a couple of questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
The point which you shared on feedback. So the question is that what feedback techniques will be more productive according to you, where you can segregate your expectations whether it met, unmet, or exceeded. So which techniques you will guide us?
So see, from my point of view, right, like feedback, we haven't seen it as like a framework as such, right? The feedback was like very simple. So how ThoughtWorks work is that like that's like a very small table and like a dining table kind of thing, and we all teammates, we like sit each other. If that's like very simple thing, it's usually set on the table itself. And there's like venues like like stand up and other things, like a very simple thing can be addressed in the stand up itself. But there are like times like where very a topic might be very sensitive, and like you call a person inside a room, and like you talk to that person one on one. And that is when the other points around like I'll just quickly see my slides. So you think about like focusing on observation, focusing on behavior, like all these things you need to apply. So you should genuinely give a feedback where you're trying to base the feedback in a way where you're trying to help the person to improve. And the other thing is that you're trying to give a feedback for the team to improve. So that is the two thought process which you have to mind. And that is how I followed, but I haven't followed a technique as such. This has
Uh,
worked for me, but I would be happy to learn anything else.
yeah, and also Prashant Glody added that like the word feedbacks gets people tensed, so it easier to say point of view. That's the
Hmm.
one statement he has added. One more question from Asigol sir. What were the pain areas at the customer's end warranting this assignment of 3 months?
I didn't exactly understand the question. So what
He's
is it?
asking about the
I
pain
will
areas.
I will
Ah,
explain my question.
yeah.
Whenever you take an assignment,
Hmm.
you are addressing something.
Ah,
Customer is expecting something. So when I say areas means something was not happening correct. So they invited ThoughtWork to be with them for 3 months and try to streamline the things. So that was my question.
ah, okay. So if I understood your question right, so every uh, in India it has been happening like right now, and in US and other markets, agile and the ways of working have been happening for quite some time, right? So whenever people are talking about agile or XP, people shouldn't probably get scared on it, because it's not a matter of whether it works or not. That has been already proved. So from that point of view, whenever we are talking about like we need to work in iterative mode, that sounds really scary. And that is where ThoughtWorks came in to like figure out ways how to like make an legacy ways of working into an iterative model, and that is the thought process behind it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
buddy.
yeah. One more questions we have from Prashant. Can you share a few challenges when you try to build our XP practice?
So at the beginning, everything was kind of challenging, right? So TDD was very difficult to sell. So people didn't really understand as to like why am I, like writing test like it's normal, right? It has been always working. Like I have been writing software, and at the end the QAs are testing why TDD is necessary is what the question was, and we are always telling like test driven software ensures that like that's already some kind of testing layers, safety nets is like already available, but they are not able to see the like the advantages of it. And that's when the example which I gave of was uh, when the refactoring was happened. Initially whenever they are doing refactoring, it used to take like like 2 or 3 weeks. Here they didn't like 1 or 2 days itself, because every time they wrote a code, the TDD was always there, and whenever the unit testing run, they were able to clearly understand like what has been wrong or what is working fine or not. And at the end of those 2 days, they clearly understood like why TDD was working. And apart from that, showcases, we always tell that like let's talk about the facts of what we are doing. For example, if we miss like few points here and there, like can we show always 8 8 8 8 8, should we do that and things. So that was another challenge about talking about like should show the real numbers, we should talk about what are the people facing on the ground. At the very first showcase, it sounded like a little bit scary when we are telling that we haven't achieved like certain points, but we give them with reasons as to like why a certain thing hasn't been achieved. And after like 2 or 3 months, when people started seeing the trend of what like this particular ways of working is providing, they understood that like the team and the leadership is like very transparent about what is happening, and they are like very vocal about what kind of help they are getting. And the most important thing is that when you are developing iteratively, they are able to see the software, so they know like some kind of progress is happening. This is not just like reasons and other things are coming out, there is software is happening on the background also.
Thanks. Thanks, yeah. Okay, one more questions from Prashant again. German peoples have a different culture than Indian. Did you face any cultural change? If so, what was it? How did you overcome with respect to the cultural change? Yeah.
German, I haven't worked as such, but there was a failure from my side which happened. So Germans are technically known to be very, very, very time bound. Like they wouldn't like come too soon or too late, they'll be on time. So from that point of view, we had to release some kind of software on, say, like assume it's like tomorrow Monday morning, right? And there should be like some kind of email which had to be sent to the entire clients, and it was like close to around 250 300 people. But what I did was that while testing something, I triggered that email today itself, and that did like sit really well with especially our clients directly. But when we actually said about it to the like the stakeholders from the German team, they are like initially okay with it, because they understood that is the very first time we are rolling out such a train, and like something like this might happen. And it's not like a big thing where like something bad happens. It's just like some communication email which is sent like earlier rather than like 2 or 3 days later. So in that point of view, I think like the timing is the most important thing for them, and rest all is like very similar is what I would say from my
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, punctuality is one of the major thing here. Okay, and this is the last question. We will take it from RC Girls again. You mentioned that there was no BA during our conversation. So, but what was the business of customer then? That's what the question has added.
I can't like directly tell about the uh, business or anything. On a very high
Yeah.
level, it's like around finance side of it. So the no BA aspect is from our point of view, right? So this is from ThoughtWorks. From the client side, there are BAs. Now we are part of an enablement engagement, and we are talking about like how to improve the ways of working, which involves all the roles. So the fear from us was like we don't have a BA. How do we tell them how to do the BA point of it? So we started off with the basic things which even Rohit said, right? Like start off with the first step. So from my thought point of view, what I did was that I thought that what I expect from a BA as a QA, and that is how the conversation started. So that is how I train the BA from the client side.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, Jaya, once again for shedding all over the lights on these topics. Yeah, thank you so much.